Although they can't reach into everybody's brain right now, how they push us around and hurt us like animals that we are not is what's been happening. Chinese are really good at it. They suppress anything, even their own history, root belief of energetic science and what it means, because all of this translates into closer and closer to what we are. The closer we get, see, it's not just Muslims and Islam they're suppressing in China, it's Christianity and Christians too. And it's Beigong and everyone else, anyone that looks deeper than the flesh. And the search for depth is necessary for everyone. And you get that search by looking, seeking, so you can find something. And welcome back. I'm here in Anchorage, Alaska again this morning, my morning still, and afternoon in most parts of the country. And John is working with me in the control room, and I appreciate the whole team down there in Austin. Owen filling in for Alex today and me catching the last hour on Friday. And I was thinking, as I was listening to some of the callers and thinking about what was being said, and I had gotten some attention on some email traffic this week. And just so listeners know, I just can't respond to everything. It's just impossible. And I volunteer time and do the best I can, but small team here in Alaska, you're looking at the Alaska branch of the InfoWars. But I want to say this about that is I listen, I try to integrate then what I learned from people who do correspond and call into the other shows so that we cover these points. And one of them I heard was the sonic weapon announced in the press. I saw that clip, and it was Chinese utilizing a microwave-based weapon on the Indian border in a conflict with India. And I did look into that a while ago, and this is what I know about that. First of all, millimeter waves, microwave technology used for this purpose, no question about it. But how do they use it, and what does it do? It'll create, for instance, a heating sensation on the skin. You can create this so it feels like about 135, 140 degrees. I mean, where it's really, really painful. And it's, again, for pushing you back or driving people away. And because the border agreement dealt with just one aspect, it dealt with the aspect of not shooting normal conventional weapons, bullets and bombs. That's why electromagnetic weapons, were developed over 25, 30 years ago and have been continued in terms of the development and strategy over the years. And there's a photo up for those that have the video feed, and you also see the U.S. version of the same device. Now, these devices were well spoken about. The Secretary of Defense came out, spoke about them, mainly for crowd control, riot control purposes, and dual use. You'll see these on our streets of America because they're a good way to control crowds without killing anyone, without the same visual images that you get when smoke, tear gas, and clubs and all that come out. So they'll use what are called non-lethal technologies that don't necessarily kill you. The problem is with these microwave weapons, they can interfere with certain electronic devices, like heart pacemakers, other appliances you might have in your body that keep everything rolling. So you might want to think about this as they're deployed around the world and around the country, because I reported on this in the 1980s. Was when the first conversations were coming. And in the early 90s, we began to break the story, because what the Department of Defense and Department of Justice were talking about is priority funding for dual use. This is how far back all of this goes. The dual use theory was that we could take these types of weapons, and I testified in the European Parliament, I testified in major international groups about slowing this down because of the invasiveness of the technologies coupled with the invasiveness of the surveillance technologies. So these things are real. They're just being talked about more in the mainstream now. Now, what happened as a result of that testimony that I gave is the most important security and disarmament recommendations coming out of the European Parliament by consensus, by the biggest consensus, were our sections in that, which dealt with HARP, which I'm not talking about today, non-lethal weapons, which were right on point here, okay? So when they passed that, This section on non-lethal weapons, things that would kill you without making holes in you, in the same conventional way. This was so, we presented so much evidence, 3 feet of unclassified documents to prove our point. Scientific literature, the studies, everything. This is going back 2 decades, more than 2 decades, okay? This is how old all this news is, that the mainstream's finally figuring out and leaking in. Give me a break. The point of InfoWars has always been, we're the tip of the spear. We've been in this longest. I've been volunteering time as a voice on InfoWars since Alex started, because he started just about a year and a half after I did in this work. And he built this network. And a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when things were really horrible, you know, for Alex, going on a lot of stuff, and he needed help. And I flew down to Austin and actually spent a week there, and met Alex face to face for the first time after all those years of working together, just the nature of our lives. But this was time for an intermission and lift up my brother down there in Austin. And I'm asking every one of you listening right now to do this in lots of different ways that you can. I know a lot of people economically can't help in that way. So don't. Pray. You can do that. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And everybody here, I know. And I've been there. I've seen it. I've been a couple of different times for a week each time. And you are supporting an incredible team. And those guys need a payroll to keep going. I'm blessed, so I can volunteer my time here. And that's what I do. When you hear me on radio around the world, that's what I'm doing. I'm volunteering my time because this is my info war. And I get to work with up to 200 producers worldwide in television and radio, and have been for 25 years. Because this message, the message that we're all talking about today, needs to be everywhere. It needs to be through every venue, reaching every constituency, from the far left to the far right and everybody in between, because we have a message of liberty, of sovereignty, of freedom, and what free speech gives us in the opportunity to engage one another. Because the fundamental aspect of every issue that we talk about boils down to one thing: being able to be the voice, to be able to speak freely, to be able to take what we are as created human beings in the image and likeness of God and press it through our voices and be heard. And people can discern what we say and separate what we say and choose on their own, because that's their right. That is their birthright too. But the info war is not about shutting the opposition down. It's about a better idea, a better set of values, a better base set of concepts that people can believe in. Because here's what every human being does, unless they've so shut it all down they no longer have what we call consciousness connected to them in the same way. They've closed the voice down that's heard all the time as we direct our traffic through the brain. And they don't listen. There's not very many of them. The rest, truth rings in the soul of every living soul. Every soul seeking to awaken to who they are and what they are and what we can do and how we can do it. And all these threats against us generate fear, anxiety, and the very things that shut down the power that we are, the love that flows through us. Now, I want to jump into another issue that got touched on, the Chinese, concepts of what's going on and how does this roll out and what does this really mean? Because now they're introducing these non-lethal weapons to the battlefield in a way that circumvents current treaties and laws and regulations. This is the point I've been making for 25 years. It's not just the Chinese, it's the Chi-Coms, it's all of their collaborators in the West for a little bit of money has traded off technology to the point where we don't have the control and command that we used to have. They do too. And they have a lot more people. And they produce their technology for a fraction of the money that we do historically. Of course, AI is going to change that and flatten that playing field out, because labor won't be the big factor. And we should be concerned about that, because that is the direction of the 21st century. And how we shape that, how do we do that? How do we transfer all the things that you and I do, from flipping burgers to driving trucks? Right. underground miners, all of it. It's all going AI, robotics, because it's cheaper. They don't file workers' comp claims and they don't have 401ks. We are all expendable in the 21st century if we allow a globalist takeover of everything. It's not just our flesh at stake, it's our living souls and how we are playing it out in the planet today. This is Dr. Nick Begich. You're listening to the InfoWars, and we'll be right back after these messages. And welcome back. I always forget to run my own commercial, and the guys always put up the image and I space it out. It's earthpulse.com. Check out my website. There's lots of things there. There's also a link to all the previous programs I've done on InfoWars. It takes you right into band.video, and then they're all chronological. So if you click on that button, it's under special events right in the middle of the screen at earthpulse.com, and you can look at what I've done and subjects that we've covered, and there's a lot of material there. Jumping into what I left off with was the issue of free speech and why it's so important right now. Of all the issues, it is the issue because nothing else can happen unless we can still have a conversation. And I've even read reports now, people calling for the banning of talk radio altogether to keep our voices from being heard. This is insanity in this republic. That is total craziness in the modern world, and anyone that's trying to sell you this is also interested in selling you something that just doesn't exist. This is a sales pitch for the wrong game plan, ladies and gentlemen. Our speech is fundamental to who we are. And the idea of offending people with words, you remember when we were little kids, maybe they don't even say this anymore. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words would never hurt me. Get real, folks. I mean, are we that much of a weak wimp society? I don't think so. I know that. Anyone who believes that we should lay down and just take it and shut up and behave, no, that is not who we are. Be polite, be respectful, but I wouldn't say behave in the sense of conforming. I'd say do the opposite. Be a respectful nonconformist. And when I drop kids off at school, I say, hey, you're going to the propaganda palace today. Make sure you ask respectful questions when you don't believe what you're being told. Because even children know in their heart when the message isn't ringing true. And they need to have confidence in that voice and not start shutting it down at 7 and 8 and 9. Because here's what happens when they do. Then it shuts down permanently. Let me say that again. If you quit listening to what some call the little voice in the head, your consciousness, maybe God talking to you, if you quit listening, eventually you stop hearing because the voice isn't there anymore. You filter it out like background noise in a crowded room. Don't do that. Don't do that. Stay firm on your truth. If you're going to shake it, change it, whether it's something I say or any of us say, check it out. Don't change your trajectory on your path through life because I say something unless you can confirm it's true. That's it. 2 witnesses, don't make the change. Confirm it's true. Find the evidence. Now, that's what I want to get to, because in the context of delivering free speech, you got to dig out information, and that's getting harder and harder. And I know guys I talk to all the time because the cartoonish nature of the mainstream keeps getting more and more ridiculous. On the last time I could fly on an international flight, I went to the back, to use the bathroom because I still fly economy. And when I was walking back, I see all these screens up, and people watching their TV. And, most of them are watching cartoons, for God's sake, adults. This is the programming we're dumping in, is the cartoons? I guess so. Which means it's bad news and good news. Here's the good news. Most people are watching cartoons. That makes the few of us that aren't a lot more effective in what we do. And that includes every one of you because you're paying attention. You're getting information. Dig it out. Confirm it also, no matter who's delivering it. Confirm it, even if it's a trusted source. Because if it's about your life, take control of your life and quit getting pushed around by anybody. Because This is the problem with the globalists. They think they just keep pushing and pushing and just nudging and nudging. And we just keep falling into this tighter and tighter bubble until they just squeeze a living soul out of us. And that's the objective, and we can't let it happen. Now, let me talk. I'm going to shift gears a bit, and I want to get into something that got mentioned again, the Chinese. Do you know Chinese have a problem now in China? It's called Chinese ISIS. Right? They got an Islamic State rising in China. Now, the first time I heard about this was in a lecture at the Alaska Pacific University here in Alaska, obviously in Anchorage. And I think it was Methodist then, Methodist University. But anyway, it was a speaker. He'd been a priest, a Catholic priest in China and Russia, in the areas where the Russian republics, the southern republics, button up against China, that all of them ending in stan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, etc. Well, all these places, when they moved away and Russia let them go, right? Why did they do that? Why did they do that? Because they were the biggest growing population. This is what this Catholic priest was lecturing about I think it was 78 or 79 when I caught that lecture. So this is a long time ago again. And I was in my early 20s listening to this lecture. And what he said was the biggest threat to China and Russia was Islam, because they weren't adhering to the Chinese rule of one kid. And in Russia, they were the biggest growing population there. And they were outnumbering in Russia, or former USSR, the white Europeans. And Russians care about this, okay? They're where we were in the 1950s in terms of how they view other cultures. And I'm not judging them. I'm just saying I've been there. I've seen that. I understand a little bit about a Russian culture, just a little bit. And I will not judge another culture because I'm not in it, and I can't make those judgments. So that's for people within a culture to make. That's why we have sovereign nations. That's why we have structures that we have, because that's reality that we all know on the ground when we travel around the world. But also, having said that, the soul of man, no matter where you go, it's all in there. It's all in there. And it's about waking everyone up, and everyone is doing their part. And there are people waking up in China and Russia and everywhere. And there have been. And I think some of the greatest things may come out of these places that had experienced in our lifetime some of the greatest repressions. What Russia came out of, and yeah, they're still evolving into a more mature democracy, and they got a ways to go. China, they got a revolution yet to have, and hopefully they do someday. The kind of revolution that liberates individual souls into outside of a collective squishy ant farm. Because that's what is. Now, the Chinese have been cracking down on Islamic people. This is wrong, the way they've done this. They've herded them all into camps for re-education to get them to renounce their beliefs and religion. Now, whether you and I believe it or not, what I do believe in is this. I believe in religious freedom, one of the foundations of this nation, that people should be free to worship if they wish. Whether you're Jewish or Islam or Christian or Muslim or Hindu, I don't care. You have the freedom to do that as an individual, but they are rounding people up and putting them in camps because of what they believe. And this is speech at the fundamental core. And where are the voices of the liberal left in this country, as millions have been herded into camps? And we're just worried about how much business we can do. This is Nick Begich. You're in the InfoWars. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Talking about just before the break, we were talking a little bit about China, Russia, kind of what's happening there in the rise of Islam in terms of China right now. They got a problem. Russia, by the changes in their boundaries and how they broke up, they don't have the same issues. They've kept the bulk of the wealth of the nation, if you will, of the old Soviet republics in Russia, and also the republics that were spun off and allowed measure of their liberty under the sphere of influence that the Russians have in their area. That's same as us in our area. That's kind of how it's been. But they have resources too, tremendous oil, gas, natural resources of all kinds, and then you've got China that needs a lot of resources and has a lot of resources developing theirs also. and then you have the technology. And this is interesting because as that last hour, talking about when they got into just that little bit about the weapons and the sonic weapons and the microwave weapons, it made me think about China generally and how they look at things. And if you go back, and I've read 3 feet, 4 feet of literature on China going back 3,000 years to some of their ancient philosophy and read it all the way into the current frame, because I really want to know how people think the best I can. I mean, I can't be 100% there, but I can get maybe 70%. I think that's the best anyone can do when you're trying to interpret anyone else from, because you only do it through your own filter. That's just the way it is. But as I look at what's happened, the knowledge of energy is a basic science. Think about Qigong and what that is. Think about acupuncture and what that is. Now, acupuncture, I know a good deal about. In fact, it's a measure of skin resistance. In other words, energetic differentials that can be discerned on the surface of skin that doesn't line up with the nervous system or the muscular system or the circulatory system. It's a separate system. It's an energetic system. And I have little devices that you can put across the surface of the skin. And in lectures, I demonstrate them. And every place there's an acupuncture point, you'll get a signal. You'll get a little light and an auditory signal that'll tell you, hey, you're on the mark, because there's an energetic signal. Now, manipulating those energetic fields is what EM weapons are about. It's what the new technology is all about. The idea of taking energy itself and shaping, forming, and pulsing it in certain ways that couple with the human body that then allow you to sort of grab a bit of control. Now, this is getting more refined, or is what I call in technology higher and higher resolution, as our speed of computing and density of computing continues to rise. And so if you look at a lot of the work I've done in this area, you can look at one of the books in particular, Controlling the Human Mind. Now, it's a little bit dated now, but all of it is as fresh as you need to get the issues understood, because what's happened since that publication is we've gone a lot further. And so the resolution's gotten better. And back in 10, 15 years ago, what you could do is manipulate emotions quite easily. You can do that today. But the idea of manipulating specific ideas, thoughts, how to program literally masses and individuals, or how to extract information and know what people are thinking, and then how to send messages back in. These are the things that are here now and coming. Now, there was a publication, Technology Horizons, and it was an Air Force publication. And I've got a clipping back in June 2002. It's cited in Controlling the Human Mind. And why it's important is where the government was going then, when this was written, was to create systems that would replicate all of the senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, sound, in such a way to create complete memory sets that would be indistinguishable. Let me say that again. Complete memories that would be indistinguishable from a real experience. Now, what does that do to testimony in courts? What does that do to learning systems if you can push information in and just sort of shove it into your long-term memory? That's where this is going. So then who controls curriculum? Right now you go, oh, I can screen it out. I'm the parent. I can look through the books. No, this can be a very different system coming. This will be the download, the interface, you see, the worldwide mind that even PBS did a special on by that night. Look it up, the worldwide mind, the connection of all the brains in the world. No privacy then. Minority Report, if you ever saw the movie, we'll be living it. Maybe we already are to a certain extent. I believe we are to a certain extent. Although they can't reach into everybody's brain right now, how they push us around and hurt us like animals that we are not is what's been happening. Chinese are really good at it. They suppress anything, even their own history, root belief of energetic science and what it means, because all of this translates into closer and closer to what we are, the closer we get. See, it's not just Muslims and Islam they're suppressing in China. It's Christianity and Christians too. And it's Beigong and everyone else, anyone that looks deeper than the flesh. And the search for depth is necessary for everyone. And you get that search by looking, seeking, so you can find something. Look at the story of Solomon. He went everywhere. He looked at every occult thing in his time. If he were living today and doing those studies, there'd be a lot of Christians want to burn him at the stake. Okay, but it was his path. He learned a lot, became the wisest man in the world as a result. So don't judge another man's path. Judge your own. Let God judge the path of the other man. Because judge ye not, lest ye be judged. And I think that has a lot of power in it. But you can make a judgment. Don't be too hard on yourself, but make a judgment about yourself. Are you engaging the world in the way you should? Only you can answer that question. No one else can answer that for you, even though a lot of people will try. And you might have been one of those trying to tell someone else's programming too. But here's the deal. You know your flaws better than anyone except God. You know them all. No one else does. But if you're so critical and so hard on yourself and you crush yourself with your own criticism, this is judgment against the creation. Oh, let me say that again. This is you making such a harsh judgment of something created in the image and likeness of God yourself. Okay, be critical, be correcting, change. You know, repentance is about change, not about just saying I'm sorry and going on and doing whatever you're doing, saying you're sorry a bunch of times and showing up for the priest to say, oh, I'm sorry. No, it's about change, fundamental change, but that comes from knowing and then deciding and then acting and doing and falling back into your power as a created human being so you get your power back. And then miraculous things begin to happen in your life and everyone around you because there are no options then. That is the option. So the suppression of the human spirit is what the Chi-Coms recognize and the globalists recognize, and they use fear and all manner of control to accomplish that. And that is becoming more widespread. China's just the model to look at. Globalists look at it. That's where they're making most of their money. Look at where they've made their money over the last 40, 50 years since 1971 when we opened up China with Nixon and Kissinger. We closed the gold window. We opened China. They went from bicycles to Mercedes. And here we are in the United States with Chinese virus and millions unemployed. And they've killed a few 100,000 and they killed a few million. And how many died in Vietnam? 57,000. They've already done 5 times as many in the U.S. and not a shot's been fired. It's the Chinese virus, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not saying Chinese are bad people. I'm saying whoever did that are bad people, regardless of who they are. But what I do know is whoever's taking advantage of this opportunity are not our friends. And they're not necessarily their own allies. They just have different agendas, and they're all zeroing in on the opportunity to screw America and screw the planet. And we're the InfoWars, and we are the wall against that. This is Nick Begich. We'll be right back. Hey, I want to say thanks for being here on this Friday afternoon. I always try and get the fourth hour as I know everyone's heard all the details of all the garbage going on with the election. Alex has been incredible work getting people out there to be talking about this issue. And I try to not kind of get into all of the same themes. And I try to take this last hour and kind of wrap the week up with maybe a little bit of a lift up. At least that's my hope in all of this, because I'm just that way. I'm a pathological optimist. I can't help myself. And I believe in this republic, and I believe in living human souls, and I believe that we win this battle in the end. And we win it in the flesh, we win it in the spirit, we win it, period. So we're in it to win it. And this is what I would say too. Now, I talked a little bit about China in the last segments. I want to say this because I don't know if there's people out there in China listening. I hope there are. I really do, because here's what I know. All around the planet, people hear this program and hear this broadcast and hear our voices, individually and collectively, your voices too. Everyone we speak to, this matters right now. And if we do just a little bit to make a situation happen where people begin to look again, to seek the truth, and to begin to really try and discern what's real and what isn't, as we begin to push into the world instead of being pushed around. We got to find our power in that. And so for that, we have to let go of fear. We have to let go of anxiety. Now, this is pretty rough, you know. I mean, in fact, I think it's by design. If you think about it, it is by design if we are kept in that state, because that's when we're the most vulnerable and the least capable. Now, when I say that, it's not a metaphor. It's not kind of like, oh, I think this. The science proves this. It's what I've been writing about for most of my career in terms of this area of technology. Is this technology that either liberates us or frees us? It's the airplane that either drops bombs or delivers the mail. Okay, it's the operator that gets to decide. That's both individually with us and collectively as a country, as a state, as a locality, and other countries, and then globally what we do to kind of get along. And here's some things I want to bring out again. And it used to be the John Birchers warning about all this and everybody poo-pooing them in the 60s. And then now all that stuff is now mainstream. And I don't know what their agenda is today, but it's kind of like, well, you were right, but nobody paid attention. And I look at this, and what were they saying? They were talking about New World Order. There was a good book, None Dare Call a Conspiracy. I highly recommend it. Gary Allen, I read it years and years ago. And there was another one he wrote called Jimmy Carter, and I recommend that one too, 1970s vintage. You know, the story has been told over and over again, but a lot of people haven't heard it. The mainstream is really shutting it down. There's a cover on the screen. You know, and so you have all these things happening in the world, and really it's about silencing our voices. And this is what we can't allow to happen. And in these last days of the fire drill, we're seeing some things. Now, I know Owen was talking about what was going on with Trump's press release. Now, what press conference? Now, why was he talking about those? Because these are things you couldn't legislate, because Big Pharma doesn't want any of this legislated. There's things they don't want legislated. Executive order is the order of the day. And let's get our speech back. Let's shut down these tech giants that are now directing speech traffic and filtering speech out. No, they're public conveyances. They can't do that. These are the airwaves. They don't own them. Let's just take them away. They can keep the money they have, but we got to take them away and restore order to the public airwaves so all voices can be heard and no one gets to filter them out. That's the only public order, is that. You know, we cannot allow the owners of the media now to control the airwaves, which are all of ours. This was the principles of the FCC. See, nobody remembers any of this, because when radio was invented is where these discussions happened over 100 years ago. See, no one's having the discussions today because we just let it kind of ooze its way in, or one slice at a time until the bologna's all gone and we don't notice it, or the slow boil of the frog, whatever example you want to use. But you got to live long enough and have a memory strong enough. And I pray to God I keep mine for another 40 years and can keep talking, because then I'll have 100 years of experience instead of just the 62 I have right now. And you, all of you together, we have millions of years of experience. Think about this. Collectively, we have millions of years of experience. In your household, the two adults and the children, how many years of experience do you have? It's all different experience, all seen through your individual filters. When our consciousness comes together, we don't need to wait for some AI-assisted worldwide mind. We already have one. We're in it. We're in it. It's what we were created to be. It's who we are. And again, I want to say, in the context of the world right now, people are being suppressed in all different ways. And when people are suppressed, they get angry, because that runs against who we are as created human beings. We're not meant to be under house arrest, in jail, without having anyone bringing us our meals. You know, we're in jail. folks, if we succumb to this, because it'll be one slice at a time. It started, remember, it was only 15 days, and now we're 9 months in, and the lockdowns look like they're coming. You know, what is going on here, folks? House arrest, and we're all buying in. And then they're going to allocate a little money to everyone, to hush money, let's call it. Well, the banks are running the skim game of taking a little bit off the top, you know? And it's like they've just created a whole new context of words to make us feel good. Oh, it's a quarantine. It's not jail. Oh, it's an allocation. It's a tax refund. It's not a allowance. You know, this is nonsense, folks. Really, let's look at the effect. Okay, let's not think about the words and the illusion. Let's think of the effect. Do you feel free? Do you feel liberated? Do you feel sovereign? If you don't, something's wrong, because that's what we were created to be: free, sovereign, living souls in the image and likeness of God, being creative, doing creative work, not being diminished and told we're nothing, that we're some herd that needs to be herded, we're a group of taxpayers who need to just pay, or that we're just consumers that just need to keep grabbing and eating, and hey, they'll just crank out more money so we can just consume. No, that is not what we were created to do. A lot of people have lost in that illusion. That's their deal. That's their, hopefully they'll find a way out. But our individual path that dictates what we do is based on a set of values, and those values are being lost in the shuffle. Let's not let that happen as we roll into this next decade of unrest kicking in. But let's get some executive orders going. Let's get our speech back. Let's do as much as we can while we can, just in case the Chi-Coms win the fights that are taking place right now. And I know Trump's team is on it. They've got the best team, I imagine, in the world on it. Hopefully this thing gets quickly to the U.S. Supreme Court. The evidence gets weighed and testimony gets heard from individuals that can lend an ear to the truth in this, so we can see what happened. Because one thing is for sure, half the country doubts the outcome of this election, and that's too many. We can't have that. We can't go forward into this century doubting our electoral processes. These have to be dealt with. And I've said it before, and I say it again. These machines cannot be trusted. They can't. Computers cannot be trusted to be foolproof. They aren't. That's the business of the info wars, you know, that are taking place outside of this venue. These are the real wars going on at a very, very high level. And Alex, as a visionary, grabbed that name, right? And because he saw it. He saw it 25 years ago. And my slogan back then was changing the way we see the world, because what I was seeing was way different than what the mainstream was seeing. And so change the way we see the world is gather the information and make new judgments. Make a judgment about your life today and how you're going to engage the world this weekend. This is Dr. Nick Begich, and you've been listening to the InfoWars, the most important broadcast on the planet. Remember the InfoWars. Go to the InfoWarsStore.com and support this network. This is Nick Begich signing off. Have a great weekend.
The globalists are trying to censor what you can see and what you can share. Don't let them win. Go to our emergency election newsletter at Infowars.com/newsletter. Sign up for free and get intel they don't want you to have, and then share it. Infowars.com/newsletter. It's time to override the censors and get the truth out. America in crisis. Emergency lockdown 2 is coming. Support InfoWars in the fight against total economic collapse and Biden martial law disguised as lockdown 2. Up to 60% off, plus free shipping and Triple Patriot points on everything. And we got DNA Force Plus and Alpha Power back in stock, Bodies back in stock, Biotricillium back in stock, Ultra 12 back in stock, Bottom Mineral Fusion back in stock, selling out quickly. I'm going to say this right now. We called it Anthroplex, super strong, boost your body's, natural test. Boost all these things. It's so good for your immunity. Nothing does that like boosting your test. It was the best seller under Anthroplex, but somebody had a copyright. They threatened us. So I changed the name to Alpha Power. Super strong, super high quality. We haven't had this in a year because I waited, and then by the time COVID hit, we couldn't get it in the high quality version. It finally was available, and the company told us that we're getting the supply from. We may go out of business because of the total lockdown. You better put in a bigger order if you ever want to get it again. We may close in the new year. Now, why is this product special? What is in this? What does it do? Well, it's got a bunch of things in it, but it's got these proprietary ingredients: LJ100, Eurycoma, long phalangia, organic maca, horny goatweed, tribulus, fruit extract, rice grain concentrate, niacin, and zinc. By the way, we were putting zinc in this before putting zinc in things are cool. Zinc just supercharges everything you do. It's got an organic zinc in it. It's back in stock, 50% off at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And it funds this whole operation. Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula, sold out for months, back in stock. So good for your cells, so good for your immunity, so good for your inflammation. It's back in stock, 50% off, InfoWarsStore.com. DNA Force Plus is the one thing I'd be doing other than X2. X2, clean, pure iodine. It's essential for all human activity. As much as I'm stressed out, as much as I fight, as much as I do, I could not operate. I'd be dead without taking these products. When I forget to take them, I feel it. And it's expensive. DNA Force Plus is expensive because PQQ and CoQ10 and the high quality forms are very expensive. You can't find formulas with anywhere near this dose for anywhere near this price. Look at that, 99% reviews, 4.9 stars, InfoWarsStore.com. It's 50% off, free shipping, triple Patriot points on your next order. Sign up for auto ship, an additional 10% off on your next order. But it's all back in stock. InfoWarsStore.com. We need a lot of money to fund this operation, be able to do all this and take on the globalists. You want to see more action, get in there and buy the products. I appreciate you all. I'm just saying, point blank, stop the steal. Republican crisis sale right now. American crisis, emergency lockdown 2 coming. Get the products while you still can.
Climb to the top of the food chain with Alpha Power by InfoWars Life. For those who want to increase testosterone and energy levels. Most men know that testosterone levels begin to decline starting around 30 at a rate of about 1 to 2% per year. This drop can show signs such as fatigue, low energy, low sex drive, and muscle loss. Alpha Power is packed with some of the most potent and clinically tested ingredients on the market. The secret is in the synergistic blend of ancient ingredients that have been concentrated into their most potent forms, including Eurycoma longifolia, originally from Malaysia, maca root from Peru, horny goatweed from China, and tribulus from India. Reach your alpha male potential with Alpha Power. Head to InfoWarsLife.com and secure your bottle today.
2 InfoWars best-selling products are now back in stock after being sold out for months. BioTrue Selenium from the mustard seed, essential in all electrochemical activity in the cells in the body. That's every human activity. And on top of it, Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula with 95% curcuminoid. Leading competitors have 3 to 5%. The things that turmeric does, I don't have to tell you, this is the highest quality, the strongest you're going to find. So both of these are amazing products, and they fund the info war, which is a 360 win. On top of it, despite the fact they're in demand, they've been sold out for months, they're both 50% off, triple Patriot points, and free shipping at InfoWarsStore.com. That's BioTrue Selenium from the mustard seed. It's amazing. And on top of it, we also have Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula at InfoWarsStore.com. This sale will not last long. I want to thank you all for your support, but you really need to try these products. People absolutely love them because they really, really work. InfoWarsStore.com.